Welcome back. More than half the people named in today's King's Birthday honours have been recognised for their work within their local communities. They appear alongside a host of politicians and performers named in the first list since the King's coronation. Well, in 1995, Susie Schofield's husband, BBC reporter John Schofield, was shot and killed while on assignment in Croatia. He was 29 years old. Last night, Susie was awarded an MBE for the charity that she founded in his name. The John Schofield Trust has provided early career mentor schemes to more than 1,000 journalists. And I'm pleased to say that Susie joins me now here on Sky News. Susie, it's great to have you here this evening. Firstly, I'm just very keen to get your reaction. When did you first find out, and what was your reaction when you found out?
Sorry, the sound is cut out. I found out about a month ago.
And Susie, you've been. What was your reaction when you found out? Were you surprised? Were you shocked?
I was very surprised, very dumbfounded, thinking, crikey, these sorts of awards don't go to people like me. So, no, it was really, a real surprise, and obviously I was really excited by it as well.
Absolutely. Now, Susie, you've been awarded, as I was saying there, an MBE for services to journalism. You've also been awarded, this was obviously through your charity that you've set up for your late husband who was killed in 1999. We will talk about the charity in a moment, but firstly, just tell us about your husband, the type of man that he was.
Oh, he was lovely. John was gorgeous. He was such a welcoming and open and friendly person, both personally and professionally. And it was, tragedy. He was killed, and so many people, really felt his death very keenly. And one thing that happened who listened to him, who watched him, watched his reports, his colleagues and also his bosses. And I just thought it was such a, it sort of compounded the tragedy, because John knew none of this. He did not know how much respect in which he was held, how much affection. And I just think if he'd known, that would have made his whole approach to his career far more enjoyable. And I just thought, I don't want anyone else to have to suffer this again. If people appreciate people, they should tell them at the time. And concurrently, as these letters came in, we were all donations, completely unsolicited. So I thought, well, what do we do with this? It's quite a significant pot of money. So I thought, well, I'll set up a charity, ostensibly to recognise young journalists, so that we recognise them as they're at the start of their career, as they're progressing, not when they're a bit further along the line, which at that time were the only awards that were available. So with the Royal Television Society, I set up the Young Journalist of the Year award, and then subsequently over the years we thought there's more that we can do to help young journalists. It was quite obvious that if you were well moneyed, if you had qualifications, if you had connections, you would succeed in the news industry. But if you weren't, you're not likely to get your foot in the door. And the consequence of that is those people's stories are not being represented in the newsroom. So we decided that the trustees and I decided we'd start a mentoring scheme, particularly to help those people from less advantaged backgrounds, talented young journalists, so that they could get help and a champion in the newsrooms. So, as you said in the intro, we've helped hundreds of journalists, and it's just been one of my, absolute pleasures is to see the careers of these young journalists just bloom under the guidance of these wonderful mentors, all of whom volunteer. And we have quite a number from Sky mentoring this year. For example, and Kellner actually won the Young Journalist of the Years back. Have that circle. She's back to the trust, which is great to see.
Absolutely, and we did catch some of what you said there, especially towards the end, because the sound broke a little bit, but I think it sounded like Martha Kellner, who'd won the Young Journalist of the Year, who, of course, does incredible work there. And, Susie, I've attended a John Schofield Trust event myself personally, and I've seen firsthand the work that you do, for journalism, but also for diversity within journalism. And as you've touched on, that you've helped hundreds of people, well, more than 1,000 people that you've helped.
Yes, yes, and the problem is in journalism, it's still an elite profession, and all the mentees that we help are from from backgrounds not represented in the newsroom. So they're people with disabilities, LGBTQ+, socioeconomic disadvantage, ethnic minorities. So we're really trying to make a difference by helping those people get into the newsrooms, and it's great to see those journalists blossom. So, for example, we've got Lewis Goodall, who was one of our mentees, and Ashley John Baptiste from the BBC. So it's something that I feel really keenly on. There's still an awful lot of work to do, and we're just setting up a new scheme for young people with care experience to help them get into the news industry, because they need that help, they need the connections which they just don't have through no fault of their own. So we're working with Bernardo's to set that up too.
And Susie, just you are in that position where you interact with so many journalists. You've seen the mentors and the mentees, and this is fantastic work that you do. And as I said, I've been to some of your events and I've seen this firsthand. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to break into the journalism industry, but actually, as somebody like yourself who speaks to established journalists all the time, what advice would you also give to people in the field right now?
Well, I'm not a journalist, so I really wouldn't be able to advise coherently, on someone coming through. But having said that, last weekend we held a masterclass for our mentees, which was a great event. People, journalists came in and gave their inside accounts of what it's like to be a journalist. And we did have a panel on, a career agony aunt, and there was a lot of really good advice. And the one that stands out for me is, if you admire a journalist, write to them, tell them, and what I have found is that, across all industries, people love to help other people. If you're asked to help, often you're flattered and you think, well, if I can help, yes, of course I will. And that is the goodwill that I have sort of seized upon. And I just, I hope that I made it to the advantage of the news industry. So, yeah, I just think if you've got a passion for reporting news, go out and do it, tell your story, get it out there in whatever way you can.
Susie, thank you very much indeed. There's Susie Schofield there, who, of course, founded the John Schofield Trust. It's been great to have you here with us this evening.